Continuing with whole numbers, we're going to take a look at subtraction of whole numbers. Now with the subtraction, once again, we're not going to use a calculator. I do want to make sure that you are familiar with some vocabulary. Subtraction is finding the difference of two numbers. Suppose you pick 6 pints of blueberries and give your neighbor 2. What do you have left? Well, the subtraction that represents this is 6 minus 2 is 4. I know you're comfortable with that. The words. The number you're subtracting from is called the minuend. The number that you're subtracting from it is called the subtrahend. And the answer you get is the difference. You may not have heard those words before, but I wanted to at least expose you to them. Okay, and something that is useful to recognize is that when you take 2 away from 6 and you get 4, that you could check that by adding the difference and the subtrahend to see if you get the minuend. And I'm not going to keep using those words over and over, but you can use addition to check your subtraction. All right, let's take a look at some of the problems. Well, having a little trouble. There we go. Now all of a sudden it jumped. All right, let me get my lined paper on here. All right, the first one says subtract using borrowing if necessary. So I have 552 and I'm subtracting 333. I line them up, make sure that the ones are lined up. In this immediately, when I say, can I take 3 from 2? The answer is no, there is not enough in the ones. You go over to the tens column, borrow, which means that 5 now becomes a 4. Because you borrowed a 10, the 2 now turns into 12. It's kind of hard to see that, but 12 minus 3 is 9. I have 4 minus 3 is 1, and 5 minus 3 is 2. I have 219. So the difference between those two numbers is 219, and we did have to borrow. Let's look at another one. We have 2,871, and we're subtracting 1,615. Line them up nicely. Please try to be neat. So can I take 5 from 1? No. So I go to the next place value, which in this case is whoops. Where did it? I touched something. I'm so sorry. There it is. I apologize. When I touch with my hand, things jump around. So I borrow from the tens. Now I only have 6 there. Bring the 1 there. So instead of 1, now I have 11. So I have 11 minus 5 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. 8 minus 6 is 2. And 2 minus 1 is 1. The difference is 1,256. Do not include commas when you put these in My Math Lab. All right, number 3, more subtraction. I have 7,517, and I'm subtracting 4,489. Immediately, when I try to subtract 9 from 7, I realize I can't. I borrow from the tens. And now instead of a 7, that is 17. 17 minus 9 is 8. But I run into another problem now in the tens column because I have 8 and I'm subtracting it from 0, which is impossible. So I borrow from the next place value and bring a 1 over. So now I have 10 minus 8 is 2. 4 minus 4 is 0, and 7 minus 4 is 3. I doubt that anything I'm saying is new, but we've all probably gotten used to using our calculators, and we need to be able to do this without a calculator And then later in future courses, we will depend on calculators to make things more efficient. Now, it says to check it. My math lab won't know if you've checked it or not, but we should be able to check. To check, you're going to add these two numbers together to see if you get that largest number that's sitting on top. So let's see. 8 and 9 is 17. Write down the 7, carry a 1. Whoops. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 8 is 11. There's the 1, carry a 1. 1 and 5 is 4. 4 and 3 is 7. If you want to, you could actually rewrite 3028 plus 4489 and add them there. I was just trying to do it while it was sitting here in this problem. But if I add these for 17, carry the 1, that's 11, carry the 1, that's 5. Add those for 7, you can see that it does check. All right, let's look at number 4. I have 6003 and I'm subtracting 3187. I try to take 7 from 3 and I can't, but when I go to the tens to borrow, I have 0 tens. I have 0 hundreds. I have to go all the way over here to borrow. Now I'm going to show what I do. To borrow from the thousands, I give the one I borrowed to the hundreds, but then I borrow from it and give it to the tens, and then I borrow from it and give it to the ones. So when I borrowed, I went to the first non-zero number and borrowed, gave it to this one, but then borrowed back away from it, gave the 1 to this one, borrowed back away from it. So 7 from 13 is 6, 8 from 9 is 1, 1 from 9 is 8, and 3 from 5 is 2. It asked me to check these, so I'll write them down this time. 2816, 3187. I'm supposed to add those. That gives me 13, carry the 1. 1 and 1 is 2, and 8 is 10, carry the 1. 1 and 8 is 9, and 1 is 10, carry the 1. There's 6, I check, and it does check. All right, let's practice borrowing across some zeros again. I have 9,000, and I'm subtracting 2,915. I cannot take 5 from 0, so I go to the next place value to borrow, but there's nothing to borrow. I go to the next place value, there's nothing to borrow. Finally, I get over here and I can borrow from the 9,000, making it 8. I give the one I borrowed to the hundreds, but then I have to borrow from it. And then I give the one to the tens, but I have to borrow from it, and I finally get back here. So it's silly, but it's kind of like if you went next door to borrow a cup of sugar and they didn't have any and they said, no, I don't have any, but if you get some, would you drop some off? And that neighbor said the same, and finally you borrow. Well, when you borrow, you drop 1 cup off here, take the rest with you. Drop 1 cup off here, take the rest with you. All right, so now let's subtract. 5 from 10 is 5. 1 from 9 is 8. 9 from 9 is 0, and 8 minus 2 is 6. We could check that, but it is the right answer. It is 6,085 is the difference. So be careful when you're borrowing, especially when you borrow across zeros, and the answer you're getting is the difference.